We're going to jump right into things tonight. He is the athletic director at Wilfrid Laurier University, and he's joined us tonight to give us a peek behind the curtain and to let us see a little bit and let us know a little bit about what it takes to run a university athletic department. Peter, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Glad to be here.
So we all know that going to games, whether it's football, basketball, hockey, any sport, even if you like, curling or something, it's a lot of fun. But for those of us who, it's not in games, it takes a lot of work to put on a good show for everybody. Am I right?
It certainly does, and it takes a lot of good people, and there's a lot of people behind the scenes. So on a typical game day at Laurier, especially on football game day, we can have up to 80 students that are involved in our program, everything from facility setup to concessions, marketing and promotion, statistics, even athletic therapy. Lots to make sure that what the fans come in terms of being engaged to watch our student athletes and coaches perform.
So that's an excellent point that people may not realize when you're going to a college game, especially at a smaller college. It's a lot of students there getting some experience in the field and getting experience in their things that may or may not be connected to their majors. Am I right?
Yeah, one thing about university life is that you have a lot of opportunities for experiential learning and to find out what your real niche is. So we have students that can be from science, but they can also be from communication studies. Some of them will apply it to all our marketing and promotional team that we have here, or on social media in the streaming. We have kinesiology students that'll do everything from athletic therapy support to personal training to on game day. They'll be involved with analytics and statistics that are required and league mandated on that. So they're integral to the production of the game itself.
Now, you were mentioning a crew of about 80 people. Now, is that for your typical football game, or is that kind of go across the board for all sports?
No, that would be a typical football game. So our hockey game is about, there would be about 12 to 14 students that are involved in anything from ticket taking to working the penalty box. We have streaming and play-by-play. We'll have graphics people for the broadcast itself that'll do that. They also cut in our advertisers, because you got to put in your advertisers to pay the bills. As well as a number of student staff that'll work with the team itself on equipment and some of the game day operations.
So anyone who has listened to this podcast before will know that I am most definitely permitted to say we and us and here because we talk, I talk Laurier a whole lot and have for the last couple of years here. So Peter, can you tell us how you came to join us here at Laurier?
Well, Laurier has always been known as a school that kind of built its reputation back in the 60s, mainly on football. Their athletic reputation was there, so it was something that I certainly looked at as an athletic director. But to kind of back up my career, I did my physical education. at the University of Toronto. I did my master's at Western University, or the University of Western Ontario, that what it was called at the time, in sport management, sports psychology, and then worked at the University of Toronto back as the intramural coordinator for a couple of years. And then I really delved into educational sport with the Ontario Federation of School Athletic Associations, which is called OFSA here. And it's similar to a state and it's high school federation, but it's one of the, I think it's the third or fourth largest in North America. And it runs, so I was the event management consultant and also the communications media person, and sponsorship for the 26 athletic events that OFSA held, provincial championships. And I work with the event consulting group. I did that for 5 years. I was very fortunate during those years to be mentored by a person that always said that you had to look at read outside of sport. So The Economist was our only subscription in the office, and The Futurist, and that you had to apply new trends to sport. So I used that in an entrepreneurial way. I got an opportunity to go back to the University of Toronto on the Mississauga campus at University of Toronto, Mississauga, and be their athletic director. And I built the business operations there and a lot of their facilities, including I was able to convince the Toronto Argonauts to have their 12-month football operations on the back of my football field. So it was about a $2 million investment, and so we had the last 2 years I was at U of T Mississauga. That's when Doug Flutie and Pinball Clemens, who's now the general manager of the Toronto Argonauts, were playing, and they won the Grey Cup. I take no credit to winning the Grey Cup, but it was kind of nice having Grey Cup champions on your football field practicing every day, and the coaches there 12 months of the year in their football operations. And then with that experience, the job at Laurier came up, and I applied, and in 1998 took over, and I've been here 22 years.
So probably many of our listeners don't know the history of Laurier, and it's a rather interesting one. It was this tiny little Lutheran seminary, essentially, and these four guys came up from West Virginia and decided that they were going to, lay down roots in Waterloo, and they were going to build up this university. Dean Nichols and Rich Newborough and Tuffy Knight and Don Smith. What was it? Sorry, go ahead.
No, they're tremendous individuals. I still go see Fred Nichols every week, and his wife and Marlene, and of course he was the one that first came up from Virginia. They all and then he hired his fraternity brother at Fairmount University in West Virginia, and then Tuffy came first as a basketball coach for the first year, and then he took over from Bob Solari as the football program. And this was a school of about, like Laurier was only, and it was called Waterloo Lutheran University at the time. It only had 2,200, and back then in football there was only the big four, University of Toronto, McGill University, Queen's University, and the University of Western Ontario. And he started a football program, and they eventually challenged them and started to be known as the team that could knock off one of the big four. And in 1966, they went to a bowl game, and the first college bowl against, I believe, St. Francis Xavier at the time. or Queens. I can't remember. But it kind of built the reputation of WLU. In 1973, when we became a public funded institution, we had to change our name from a religious affiliation. So they still kept the WLU, and there was a former Prime Minister of Canada, Wilfrid Laurier, and they named the university after Wilfrid Laurier.
Right. So we are introed our podcast with what I would say is the Laurier anthem. It's John Denver's Country Roads. And how tough was it for you to follow those guys, those legendary Laurier guys? Because you kind of have come in as an outsider, which, hadn't been done in years.
Yeah. Well, first of all, coming in, I was the first athletic director pretty much in Canada that didn't come from the coaching background. I came from one of the business background. And at the time, Tuffy and Rich had built great facilities, but they were getting tired and old. And the demographics had changed a bit. So with me changing the facilities of the University of Toronto and building the football operations, my job was to come in for two things. One, to renovate the facilities, and then B, build the business side of it so that you can build it. Obviously, as an athletic director, I was in a totally different pathway than what Tuffy and Rich were. Tuffy and Rich were head coaches of the football team, and they ran, an athletic and recreation program. But my job was to, hire good coaches and empower them to run the excellence program. And my job was to build the business side of it. So I remember taking over, and the budget total was $800,000, and now it's about $4.9 million, and I've got to generate $1.9 million every year on that side. So the marketing, sponsorship, the merchandising, the sports camps, and a lot the fundraising aspect of things. That's really more my forte. My sports psychology background, though, is because it's important that you get good leadership. I've always worked with a sports psychologist whose name is Dr. Dana Sinclair, and Dr. Sinclair actually has a Super Bowl ring with Indianapolis Colts. Worked with Tony Dungy, and has a Stanley Cup ring with Brian Burke. And she's been a sports psychologist doing a lot of the draft choices for a lot of NBA teams, Major League Baseball with the Dodgers, the Boston Red Sox. Her husband and I went to the University of Toronto together. He's a partner with Dana. So they do behavioral assessments of every coach that I have so that I know more than just the X's and O's. How they deal with young people and what stresses them. And then not every coach is perfect, so you want to make sure that you hire an assistant coach or at least delegate things to even a student manager that can even clean off the desk of a coach to organize them so that they don't get stressed and they can focus in on the X's and O's and dealing with their teams. So, that combination of my business background and my sports psychology and human resource side of sport was a different path. So Tuffy Knight and Rich Newborough, Don Smith, who built our recreation program, we have an award in Don Smith's name. And, their path was a different time. And, sport was moving more into the business side of things because universities have to run their athletic program in a fiscally responsible way. So my path was just different, and but I've been very cognizant to make sure that we keep those traditions that my predecessors had in the past.
So we talked before that you are probably the senior member of the athletic director fraternity in Canada.
You got to be careful, Dave, about saying senior. You know, I would say well-seasoned, experienced. But yeah, you know, in the OUA, I am the longest serving. I think Vito Castaglia in Nipissing, he joined around the same time, but I think they were just getting their status at the U Sports at the time, Nipissing University up in North Bay. And then across the country now, yeah, there's a lot of new faces out of the 52 schools, and I'm the more seasoned person. Let's say that.
That's a better word, Peter.
So
I took this job when I was 39, so I'm still pretty young.
Oh yeah, totally. You just know more than everybody else.
Well, I've learned from a lot of ups and downs, that's for sure. There's been some good moves and some bad news, and you just keep learning.
So over that time, and as someone who I would say is probably close to the department, but definitely an outsider as a season ticket holder. I mean, to me, one of the big challenges is getting the students out to come and support the team in the stands. So how would you say that dealing with the students has changed over your tenure at Laurier?
Well, they're attached to their phone. Maybe that's the biggest change that's there. You know, I just, you know, Sports Illustrated this past week had one journalist that went to Clemson, University of Florida, and Ohio State, and you know those big schools are having the same problem in terms of student engagement. If you look in their student stands, they're empty, and I know last year the athletic director at Michigan State sort of sounded off on their students for not being at the game enough. You know, there's a lot of different options, and you know, I think too that you know this is why we've incorporated this generation of student leaders to say, okay, how do you engage them? So there's a lot of work now on social media, a lot with using influencers on campus to generate, even doing things with international students, which is a growing student population, to educate them about the different types of sports that North America has to offer that they may not see, especially football and so forth. So, you know, you have to be very active that way in terms to engage the students and get them into the stands.
So, Peter, you had mentioned some parts of your job that people may not think about when they think about running a department, like fundraising and so forth. So, in your words, what would be some of the challenges that come along with working at a small school like Wilfrid Laurier? I mean, a budget of 4.9 may not sound small, but compared to other places, it's tiny, right?
Yeah, it's tiny because really, when I came in '98, you know, the student population was 5,800. I remember going to, you know, one of my donors one day and looking on his office wall of the composite business class, and there was like 60 people on it, which was not very big. And even since Dave has graduated, like since 2000, like Dave graduated 97, Dave?
Yeah, 97.
Yeah.
And he was calling you old.
I didn't say he was alone. I thought he graduated like 40 years ago or something.
Yeah, you know, he's one of my senior alum. Anyhow, the since 2000, Laurier has we just graduated our 100,000th graduate. And you got to understand, the seminary started in 1911, right? So it was pretty small. And so our 100,000th graduate was 2 years ago, and 45% of our alumni have graduated since 2000. So that means that a lot of them are still building their careers, starting families, paying off their mortgage, car payments, and so forth. And a lot of senior alum at most larger schools, their kids' education is done. They're probably at the far end of their or the last part of their business career, and they're ready to cash out. And those are the big donors that have that are primed for the major gifts. Laurier is very fortunate in that we have a lot of loyal alumni that are involved in our Adopt a Athlete program, and that's something that I, initiated. We do ask our student athletes to help in that regard, but we raise about $250,000 to support our teams, and those are for enhancements to the program. That is not funds that augments the regular operation of the budget itself. This is for any extras in terms of the special exhibition, like our basketball team this past August did a tour of France prior to the beginning of the season. So, we're a small school, but, because of that tradition way back in the 60s, well before I came, that really focused in on athletics. And I actually, the Golden Hawk itself, if you're here on campus, everybody's a Golden Hawk. And there's an emotional tie to it. So people do give to the athletic program because, and the other parts of the university, because they have that emotional tie, because they all considered Golden Hawks.
Yeah, I remember back in the old days when I was a student there, it was so different. It's almost funny to me now that connecting with students is difficult, because I think it was difficult back when I was a student, because if you didn't hang out at the athletic complex for whatever reason, and at that time I only hung out at the athletic complex to write my exams, which was not something I enjoyed, of course. But we had no idea when anything was going on. The school paper sort of published when the football games were, and you kind of knew when they were because of the nature of football. It's once a week and it's on Saturday. And well, this week are they home or away? And it was that simple. It was 2:00. But there was no internet. There was no Laurier website. I mean, we had just discovered email, like my Mach 1 account. Peter, did you have a Mach 1 account?
Yeah, I had one when I first came to Laurier. Although this building wasn't wired. I had Commodore 67 and an electric typewriter when I first started here. So the first thing I did with the donation was Paul Gianelia, who built the Confederation Bridge. I asked him two things. One, to give me some support so I can choose good coaching and good leadership. And I presented the model of how I select coaches with Dr. Sinclair. And the second thing was I need a website, because that's going to be my vehicle to create wealth. And you can imagine in 1998, nobody was buying anything off the internet. But again, that mentor of mine said, read The Futurist. And some article said that one day people will buy things off a computer, including tickets and merchandise and so forth. And so I was fortunate that Paul, who built the Confederation Bridge, for those of you in the United States, that's the bridge that connects New Brunswick to Prince Edward Island here, which was an engineering marvel. He gave a credit card to one of my student leaders, and we bought hardware, software, and he hired we hired a project manager to create our website. So our website is actually, not one of the was built from scratch by business students and so forth. And it was our vision statement was a vehicle to create wealth. And it was also our registration system for intramurals, our ticketing system, our class management system, our facility bookings, and so forth. So it was, with a small department, it created a lot of efficiencies workflow-wise. The students back then, because when they used to line up to manually do the Visa or the cash for payment, there was a lineup outside the athletic director, and they called WLU "We Line Up." But the website, which was again was a marvel. I always said to the students, I have a PhD in computers. Press here, dummy. But you have expertise.
Is that what you got from Western?
What's that? No,
is that what you learned from Western when you went there?
I'm not going to slag Western. Western's still a good school. I just like beating them on game day. But anyhow, that was the most important part, that it was created by students. And to be honest, in the last 20 years, I still marvel at some of the new innovations that students will bring in, from when social media was first coming in and them trying things. We were the first on the internet in Canada to stream a game. We had Hawk Vision back then. And we even had our own radio show here in town, Hawk Talk.
I missed that. 570.
Yeah, well, 570 changed to the news wheel. News at 11, traffic at 9. So I'd like to have it back, because I still think there's a medium for radio. But anyways.
Yeah. Well, hey, I think we as travelers can all appreciate how the internet has changed us. I mean, I can't say I was doing sports travel before the internet, but I can't see myself doing it without. I don't think just access to tickets alone would be just so challenging without. I mean, this past weekend I was at Ferris State and Central Michigan. I probably wouldn't even have known they existed without the internet. So, let alone picking up tickets and heading down there to check out a game. So, well,
you can imagine way back when I was doing the Office of Track Meet for registrations, we'd send out to every high school in Ontario, which is 625 of them, blue entry forms for boys and pink for women, and you'd run those on a Gestetner. You'd FedEx it out. They'd bring it back. It's all manually plugged in on one computer for the timing system, and you had 2,000 kids run over 3 days. So the internet has created some big change in the way I've seen how things are run over the years. But I'm always looking for the newest trend, that you have to take advantage of. So, I really, in talking to my staff and so forth, is say, okay, what are some of the best practices out there, not just in North America, but in Europe, in Asia, and so forth, that maybe we can bring here. And I think, the next piece is where gaming and esport will be in a mix here.
I'm pleased to refer to myself as a senior when it comes to gaming and esport, because I don't get it.
Imagine getting a college scholarship for esport.
No.
Well, to be honest, like Oliver Luck, who was Vice President of Compliance for NCAA, he spoke at U Sports maybe 2-3 years ago in Mississauga. And his son is Andrew Luck there, that played for the Colts. And, he spoke to all the athletic directors in Canada. He says, you're going to have a big groan about this, but one of the next sanctioned sports in the NCAA will be esports, and a lot of the schools in the United States right now, with tuition and a little bit of restriction with international students coming, they want international students, and Korea, China, and India, where a lot of international students come from, they are esport mad. And so a lot of them have developed esports, in Texas, a lot of schools and so forth. So I'm watching that trend, and, that's something that you're there because you're also marketing your other sports too, right? If they're playing NHL hockey or NBA basketball or Madden football, there's ways in which you can hook them in to watch the real thing.
So what would you say has been maybe your toughest moment as athletic director at Laurier?
Well, there's always tough moments. As we grew, in our facilities, especially gymnasium, currently we have triple gymnasium and a double gymnasium. You can imagine the pressure on recreational sport scheduling. So one of them was that we had a volleyball program here. A lot of my coaches were part-time, not making very much money, like less than $10,000, doing it mainly for the love of their sport. And with the rise in both club sport and recreational sports, the students wanted more because they're all fee-paying students. They wanted more time to dedicate to the recreation side, and the university was going through some cutbacks also on that time. So we were growing intercollegiate sport, so we had to choose, what we wanted to be really good at, and of course football is always important, but men's and women's hockey is women's hockey in particular. We were starting to really build. We won a national championship in 2005. We've had Cheryl Pounder play on our team, who's got 2 gold medals. And we had to cut volleyball. So taking and telling 40 athletes that their reason why they came to a university is no longer there is really a tough time. But at the same time, in terms of building the program, the next year we created an extra 396 opportunities in intramurals, and we took over the club program that was kind of fledgling with under a different umbrella outside the athletic department, and we grew the club program from 8 clubs to now 21 clubs. And so you sometimes have to make those hard choices. So that was one of the times. The other time, there's some times where obviously in any athletic program you might have student athletes that make some bad decisions, and we had a few. We had a major hazing incident at one point, and we've also had some off the field problems that we had to deal with, so including some doping.
Right. Now, to go over on the plus side, is your highlight moment? Is it December 3rd, 2005?
That's certainly one of them, and winning a national championship in Iverwin Stadium on the 19-second field goal and being a real underdog, that was good. 3 years before, we did have an off-the-field problem. That probably galvanized the team because we challenged them, and they went through some adversity. and they weren't the most talented group, but they won. I think our women's hockey program, when they won, again, they had gone through some adversity, got through it, and they beat the University of Alberta that was on a 102-game win streak with a 40-year-old student athlete that had gold medal in terms of experience on the team. And we beat their win streak at stop at 102 and won a national championship. So those are two moments. And I have a more personal one. My daughter played women's hockey here at Laurier. Was fortunate to win 2 OUA championships, and we won in Western, which is a highlight.
Always good.
Yeah, and my colleague and one of my mentors, who was the athletic director there, Trez Quigley, asked me to present the medals to the team. So presenting the medal a championship medal to your daughter is pretty special. And so my daughter Haley, who's doing her PhD right now and is in Melbourne, Australia, and working with a sport researcher there for the next 3 months. That was a special moment.
So for those that don't know, December 3rd, 2005 was when Wilfrid Laurier won their second Vanier Cup at Iverwin Stadium. They beat the Saskatchewan Huskies, and I was there. I was in the 4th row.
It was cold.
It was cold, yeah. But, it was only cold up until the end. And then suddenly it wasn't cold anymore. It's amazing how the adrenaline does that.
And everybody, the whole crowd, 18,000 crowd, they flooded the field. So
yeah.
You had to get warm because the party started and Country Roads was being played over the speaker and everybody was crying.
Yeah.
It was a lot of and tears of joy. It was a big thing for our school.
Well, it's I think what made it special to me was probably up until like what did you say that field goal was? 18 seconds, right? Left?
19 seconds, yeah.
Okay, so I think probably up to the 25-second mark, I didn't think we had a chance of winning. Throughout the whole game, I didn't think we were going to win. So when they hit that last field goal, actually it was the third down. It was a third down conversion. I think it was a 3rd and 20.
16. 3rd and 16, Dante Lucien.
Yeah, and that was like a mind blower. But to me, I mean, and I've got like some 1,300 games under my belt at various levels. That is my all-time greatest sporting moment. So I mean, it kind of defies description for me, anyway.
Yeah, there's a lot of moments in there. Being 21 points behind against Western in 2016 in the 8th Cup, and them collapsing, and we kick a convert. We score a touchdown, kick convert with no seconds on the clock. That was pretty special too.
Yeah, I was actually at the basketball game during that one. I was in the AC. I wasn't at Western for that one. But I don't know. It's something. So I don't know if you guys got anything else. I got the last question. I got the wrap up question. If you guys don't have any others.
No, you stole my wrap up question, Dave. So. Peter, we want to thank you so much for coming on and stories. You have another wrap-up question.
Yeah. Oh, no. He said that he had a question, and then the follow-up question was going to be the wrap-up.
I misunderstood. I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Dave. Wrap us up. Take us home.
So, Peter, you got to help me out here. I've been beating the drum for 2 years on this podcast. So you got to help me convince these these American guys why they should come out and check out some U Sports, football, basketball, hockey, you name it.
Well, I would say, first of all, if you know the rules of Canadian football, I'm a big Canadian football fan, and I'm a Buffalo Bill fan, so I do go down to the NFL and so forth. But watching Doug Flutie practice every day convinced me that the athleticism within Canadian football is pretty special. The other thing that I would say that we actually enjoy going down to the States and competing. Our hockey team has played Michigan and Ferris State and so forth. In terms of our football, a lot of our football athletes, when they go down to the International Bowl, and a number of them have played in that bowl, including actually Michael Foles, my head coach. He played for Team Canada. We've beaten the United States a number of times in that bowl. So and we play against Japan and so forth. So the quality of athleticism is certainly there. We don't have we're starting to have more of the infrastructure that a lot of your schools have in terms of sport performance facilities and coaching now is especially in Canadian universities is at a very high level. We had a basketball coach, Roy Rana from Ryerson. He's now with the Clippers, Dave, in the NBA.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was the Clippers or the Kings. It was
maybe the Kings. Actually, it was the Kings. And, one of the Lakehead basketball coaches with the Celtics and so forth. So, and of course, Jay Triano has been our national coach and has been the head coach there with the Phoenix Sun. And he also was coaching with the Raptors. So, I think that you should come on up north. We'd love to host you here at Wilfrid Laurier.
How close is the closest?
Canada is not that far from me.
Well, like my daughter went to Athens, Ohio. There at University of Ohio for her master's, and it was always amazed that people in Athens, even though it was only a 6-hour drive to Waterloo, Ontario, they thought it was like a 2-day trip.
Nope. So wait, Dave, how close is Tim Hortons?
Oh, geez, Peter, you guys have a Tim Hortons in the school, don't you?
Yeah, we have Tim Hortons, and we also have in the science building. We also have Starbucks, and there's Starbucks across the athletic complex, and Tim Hortons just half a block away.
So yeah, Dan,
Just sold Dan.
you'd trip over Tim Hortons on your way up here.
Okay, well, no, sign me up. Okay, on you here.
Well, and Peter didn't even mention. I mean, to me, the biggest thing, and I love telling people this down stateside, is what I usually pay for a ticket at their game. I pay for my season tickets at Laurier.
I
for
bet
like all the sports together.
Yeah, I bet. Oh, I don't doubt it.
It's, you know what? It's the best value going. It's when you're looking at tickets in the hundreds of dollars for nosebleeds for the Raptors or the Leafs. Lloyd Brown was just up, took in the Leafs and the Raptors, and he was just floored at how expensive they were. And can you get an NFL ticket for under $100? Not really for a winning team. And you can go to an OUA game for 8. You know, my kids have grown up on Laurier, and they've been free forever. So when Jackson turns 13, we're actually going to have to pay for him to walk in the door. It'll be, you know, and that's basically 13 years where he's got to go for free. So
get a job.
Start pulling your own weight, kid.
Start pulling your own weight. Most of the lawns.
And double hitters. I mean, this Saturday it's the I got a basketball hockey double hitter with a free skate in between. So
there you go.
Yeah, we have. I like the way you're talking though. How cheap our tickets are. I've got a ticketing meeting tomorrow. Maybe I'm going to jack it up there, Dave.
Whoa! Hey, you're going to get extra money from me for Jackson next year. I think that's enough.
Okay. Deal.
All right. So, Peter, thanks for coming on and joining us. It was great to talk to you and get a little peek into how the workings of Wilfrid Laurier Athletics go. Do you want to, before we say goodbye, do you want to give our listeners the websites if they want to check out a little more about Wilfrid Laurier?
Yeah, you can check out at www.laurierathletics.com. And, you know, we're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. So check us out. And I really appreciate you taking the time to highlight Wilfrid Laurier. Appreciate it.
Anytime, Peter. It was a pleasure to have you join us tonight.
I want to thank Peter Baxter and Dave and Mark for bowing out early. Peter Baxter and Dave and Mark for bowing out early. It has been a long night of technical difficulties, so I want to apologize. That interview was actually recorded 3 times. So here's this thing. You're only hearing the ones. So Dave and Mark bowed out. Paul and I are going to close it out. But I want to thank Peter Baxter again for his patience. Hanging in there with us to get the interview, and which was fantastic once we got it going and it went past 5 minutes and we were able to get it out there. And we got another guest coming up next time. Paul, why don't you take back over since it's your show and do that and the outros, my friend?
It's all of our shows, my friend. So for those of you who are expecting to hear our trip recaps, we're going to put those off until next time we get together, which will be February 4th. Which is going to be a great show because we will be joined by all-star goalie Nick Morocco of the Boston Cannons, and we're going to talk a little bit about Major League Lacrosse. So in the meantime, check out our website, stadiumjourney.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Stadium Journey, the podcast and HIAC, or for those of you who are on Twitch, twitch.tv/danlaw83, and youtube.com/danlaw83. So follow us all. We got at ProFan9, Dave Cotney. We got at Ballpark Hunters, Mark Viquez. At danlaw83 is Dan Calachico, the above average comedian. And myself, Paul Baker, at PuckmanRI. So we'll see you in 2 weeks, February 4th. Nick Morocco from the Boston Pride. Everybody, until then, close games and safe journeys.